Bob Hawke was the People's Prime Minister. He rolled up his sleeves and tackled huge reforms, always true to his trade union roots, but equally comfortable with the big end of town and indeed on the world stage. By his own admission, he was a flawed man, controversial and passionate. It was all part of his great charm.
My friends, my fellow Australians.
Solidarity forever.
The message I bring you today is a message of confidence in the future of Australia.
Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
And a renewed commitment to a better and a fairer future for all Australians.
No leader has ever stirred a country quite like Australia's 23rd Prime Minister. And nobody sums up Bob Hawke better than the man himself.
A larrikin trade union leader who perhaps had sufficient common sense and intelligence to tone down his larrikinism to some extent and behave in a way that a Prime Minister should if he's going to be a proper representative of his people, but who, in the end, is essentially a dinky-die Australian.
Our third longest-serving Prime Minister enjoyed a level of popularity that may never be seen again.
But it's amazing how sort of frightened a lot of parliamentarians are of their constituents. I used to go out and absolutely enjoy the experience, but a lot of them are just, you know, it's almost at an arm's length and they're not at ease with their constituents, whereas I genuinely love the Australian character and the Australian people, and I think they sensed that and there was a sort of reciprocation.
A bold and passionate leader.
No longer content to be the lucky country, Australia must become the clever country.
His tearful Tiananmen Square speech was a defining moment in his prime ministership.
Anti-personnel carriers and tanks then ran backwards and forwards over the bodies of the slain. I assure them.
While Bob Hawke embraced the media...
Will this in any way change your campaigning plan?
No, it could have, but no.
He could also be brash.
Now, if you want to do your speculation, do it without me. I've made my position clear. But you could kill it stone dead here and now by saying that. Come on, now grab hold of yourself. I've made it quite clear. I've said it 3 times. Now, you are just being a bloody pest.
Mr. Hawke, could I ask you whether you feel a little embarrassed tonight at the blood that's on your hands?
You're not improving, are you? I thought you'd make a better start to the year than that. It's a ridiculous question. You know it's ridiculous. I have no blood on my hands.
In a prickly exchange with the late Richard Carlton, Hawke gave as good as he got.
I hope the standard of your questioning improves.
And when Bob and his second wife, Blanche Dalpuget, sat down with 60 Minutes, nothing was off limits.
Clearly, Bob and Blanche can't get enough of one another. And now that it's finally out in the open, after who knows how many years of discretion, their urge is to share its intoxication with the world, though its vintage might always remain a mystery.
You appear indeed as people who have only recently discovered one another to look at you.
Well, that's true. That's true, yes.
The way you touch, the way you relate to one another.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Bob, could this be said to be the great love of your life?
Well, in one sense, that's unfair to the past. I mean, it is the great love of my life now. I've had love in the past, but I find now something very, very special about this love, this relationship.
What most people want to know is, when did the sex begin? Before or after you left Hazel?
Well, you'll have to put up with being accused of pussyfooting.
Because you won't tell us. Should people know?
Certainly not.
Blanche, let me appeal to the journalist in you. Would you ask this question?
No.
At that point, no one would have predicted round 2 for Charles Woolley.
So tell me when I'm going to do the slate thing.
You getting paid for this?
Yes, union rate.
3/5 of 5/8.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And 47 cents in the dollar tax.
Bob and Blanche interview, take 1.
Blanche, that was very good, very professional.
His first stage of public life was with the union movement.
If they are going to withhold supply, they should take notice of the fact that the Australian trade union movement may very well think about withholding supplies.
Which he later said laid the foundations for his success in Parliament.
That position brought me in touch with business leaders, government leaders and the public. So I was lucky in the sense that I probably went into the job in Parliament and then into the Prime Minister better prepared in terms of my knowledge of economics and fundamental workings of the economy and the Australian people that most had before me.
When I met an 87-year-old Bob in November 2017, he reflected on his proudest moments.
I find it hard to put anything above Nelson Mandela after 27 years in prison, deciding he wanted to make his first trip to Australia to see me, to thank me for what we'd done in regard to shortening the life of apartheid. And I can still remember as though it was yesterday, this sort of lithe, athletic figure bounding across my office and holding out my hand and then embracing. He said, "Bob, I want you to know I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you." I'll never forget that.
He also offered his thoughts on the leaders of the day. Donald Trump.
The beginning of the end.
Malcolm Turnbull.
Disappointment.
Bill Shorten.
Dedicated.
Pauline Hanson.
One word, I need more.
There were many shades of Bob Hawke.
He swears like a trooper, he works like a demon, he performs like a playboy, he talks like a truckie, and he acts like a politician. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Hawke.
A lovable larrikin, admired as much for his intellect as his famous party trick.
I love you, Bob.
When you scull a beer, the nation cheers. Why do you think that is?
Well, Australians by and large like a beer, and I suppose the thought of their Prime Minister holding the world speed record for 2.5 pints in 11 seconds makes them sort of vicariously proud. And it's fun, you know, it's not taking yourself too bloody seriously.
Yeah. Perhaps his greatest skill was that natural ability to speak to every Australian.
I tell you what, any boss who sacks anyone for not turning up today is a bum.
Of all the brilliant things I said as Prime Minister, the observation that any boss who sacked a worker for being late today as a bum is the one I think that is most remembered.
He was a charismatic storyteller who never denied his own flaws.
You don't cease to be a husband. You don't cease to be a father.
Congratulations. How does it feel to be Father of the Year?
In 1971, Dad won Father of the Year award, which really remains an abiding mystery, doesn't it?
I tend, I think, occasionally to take too much refuge in having a drink. Now, Mr. Carlton, you can sit there with your silly, quizzical face. You've got a reputation right around this country. Yeah, it's looking better still. You've got a reputation for your impertinence, your refusal to accept people at their face value, to try and ridicule the integrity of people. Now, I don't mind my integrity being on the line against yours.
In recent years, Bob Hawke spent most of his time on his Sydney deck with a cigar and a crossword, basking in the memories of a quite extraordinary life.
Obviously, anyone who's been in political life, to some extent, cares about what people think. I mean, you wouldn't be human if you didn't. In the end, you've got to make the decisions, whether it's in your personal life or your political life, which you believe are correct. If you deviate from that, then you're on the slippery slope.